Hi everyone. A lot of people have told me I should make this video. Uh, it's about my life, kind of. Uh, Hopefully, it's a learning example for people that are getting into trouble right now, thinking that they're badasses, doing a lot of drugs, drinking all the time. Uh, that's the only disclaimer that I have, is that it's pretty graphic in portions, and it's not. It's not, an example of how to live. It's the exact opposite. Uh, I'm going to go on with other videos that are help videos, uh, because, well, I've always been good at different things, but I've always been really good at helping people, and I like it. And hopefully I can continue doing that through this. So, here goes. My name is Michael. A lot of people know me as Seven Fingers now. Uh, we'll get to that explanation in a little while. So, my life started out just like a lot of people's do. I got given up for adoption when I was 4. Uh, got bounced around from home to home. Finally ended up with a foster family who was awesome. Uh, it was mom and dad. Uh, she came to see me every day and take me out for lunch when she was on her breaks. The whole thing was just awesome. Well, the system at the time, and I think it's the same way, uh, they have to have contracts, and their contract said that they couldn't adopt. So, no matter the fact that I wanted them to and they wanted to, the system had better ideas. And I have a biological sister, so she got adopted by a family, and they adopted us as a pair. And it didn't go well. It went everything but well. And I was already angry because I wanted to stay with the other family. I didn't want to be with this family, so I didn't make anything any better. Uh, my mom's favorite pastime was abuse, so she mentally and physically abused me, which made me even angrier. We moved up from Texas to Minnesota, and she would put me outside in the wintertime with a light jacket, rubber boots, hat and gloves if I was lucky, and I'd spend all day outside. And I learned from that survival was the only thing you had to do. And I kept getting angrier and angrier about the situation until finally I beat her with a mini Louisville Slugger bat. They took me out of the house, put me in a psych ward, did a bunch of tests, found out that I was fine, other than I had a off the charts anger problem and an off the charts protective personality. See, my sister never got abused. I wouldn't allow it. I would always interfere, and then I'd get beaten or whatever. So she didn't have to go through any of that, and I made sure. Uh, so they got done with the psych ward. They put me back with the family, which was just how things go, I guess. And the mom gave the dad the ultimatum of either he leaves with me or they get rid of me. So they kept my sister, got rid of me, which was fine by me, I guess. So they gave me to another foster home that had too many kids. Some of them they had adopted, some of them were theirs. The others were just the layaway program, keep the kids until somebody wants them. Kind of like clothes at Walmart. You pay so much money to have them hold on to you, or hold on to them for you, and then sooner or later you go in and get them, or not, whichever one happens. So I was there for a while, and finally they gave me to or they came to me and they told me that a family wanted to adopt me. Well, you got to understand at that time I was, I think, almost 8 years old. And up till then, I was bounced around, abused. So I had major anger problems, major act out problems, all kinds of stuff. And I was pretty smart when I wanted to be, pretty intelligent when I wanted to be. And because I watched what was going on around me, it gave me a pretty good understanding of people. And I got to the meeting, I guess, with this family, and I observed. I was like, okay, well, the daughter doesn't want me. She didn't say anything, but, just her overall demeanor and everything, I knew she didn't want me. My mom was reluctant. My brother was, he's kind of hard to read, but I could tell, he wasn't really for it, but then he wasn't really against it. So, the only one that seemed to be for it was my dad, which is ironic, and you'll figure out why in a little bit. So they adopted me. Or actually, I went to their house. They lived on a farm, which was awesome. A beef farm. And you would think that the story would end there. Everything would be gravy. Well, because I knew that they didn't really want me, my dad was gone all the time. My mom did the best she could. My brother and sister, so I knew that they didn't want me. And I knew that because of past experience, that they probably would get rid of me sooner or later because they'd get sick of having to deal with it. So I didn't put any time or energy into trying to know these people really at all, or trying to get close to them or bond with them or any of that kind of stuff. But as life happens, I started to bond with my mom. And even though we had issues, she did the best she could. I mean, she wasn't perfect. Nobody is. But she took a kid that had so many problems, it was crazy, and did the best she could with them. And I finally got in trouble when I was a teenager, got put in a juvenile facility, and that kind of started a lot of stuff. I found an avenue for my anger. I was already learning how to fight on my own through watching different things and practice and stuff. And somebody was teaching me on the side and everything. So I was already really good at that. And when I went to the juvenile facility, I used it. And I would get in fights just because I wanted to. I didn't need to really, but I was angry. I was angry at the system. I was angry at life in general. I was, I guess I look back on it now and maybe confused about a lot of things, even though I don't really call it confused per se, but I guess you could say I was. So that's, how that ended up. Hold on one second. I got to get my dog. Dixie. So anyway, I went to the juvenile facility and did time in that. Got in a lot of trouble while I was there. But had fun, because I got to just be me. I didn't have to worry about rules and regulations because I didn't really give a shit. So finally, I got out of juvie. I graduated from a private school. Graduated top of my class, actually. valedictorian, which was kind of amazing to everybody. My mom and dad came down to where I was and saw my graduation and everything. Well, from then, you would think that, graduating top of my class, yada, 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 I would have done big things. No. Exact opposite. I went in the military briefly. I graduated when I was 17. I went into the military briefly. Then I opted out of the military and went private contracting for a little bit. And I lived a whole different life. My mom knew part of my regular life, and then I had a life completely separated that nobody knew about. To this day, nobody really does, except for the people I tell. Well, I had it was my kind of job. I could hurt people and not even care about it. But I did a lot of, good at the same time, helping people get out of situations that they were in. So I kind of balanced it as far as I was concerned. But I never really dealt with anything within myself. I was recluse, wild, didn't care. If something happened, whatever. Well, something did happen. I experienced a tragedy. I never let myself get close to anybody. Even though I loved my mom and loved my family, I didn't really put a lot of energy into it, I didn't try to get to know anybody. I didn't try to bond with any of them. They had their own lives. I had mine. And that was just how it was. And I respected my mom enough not to let her know what was really going on in my life. And that's just how I dealt with it. So I would tell her what I thought she needed to know and hide everything else from her. And after I experienced this tragedy, it completely set me off. I started drinking heavily, doing drugs, whatever you could think of. I did it, and lots of them. Well, I finally got put in jail for something I didn't do. I made a lot of enemies because I was dealing with a lot of bad people, doing a lot of bad things, and the government was investigating, which turned out to be bad, and they wanted me. They couldn't get me. I didn't, I knew about it, but I didn't care. I wasn't afraid of them. I wasn't afraid of anything. I was, and am still, one of those unique people that I don't have fear of anything. I don't have fear of dying. I don't have fear of growing old. I don't have fear of any person in general. If I meet somebody that's the size of Shaq, the basketball player, and he says he's going to beat me up, I'm like, yeah, you can try. Because I don't fear them. I've had guns stuffed in my face. I've been beat with baseball bats, all different kinds of implements, stabbed, whatever. I've always come out on top. So when I found out the feds were investigating me, I was like, yeah, fuck them. They can't get me type thing. Well, they used the state to trump up a charge on me to get me put in jail. And it worked. I got put in jail. I ended up pleading guilty to a charge that I didn't do for reasons of my own. It's not important. But it gave me a felony. I left Minnesota, where I lived at the time, and went down to Durango, Colorado. My attorney suggested it, actually. And I knew the feds were still investigating me, but I didn't care. Like I said, got down there, I was still angry, still doing drugs, still drinking, still doing everything that wasn't right, and got in with some really bad people. I started doing some more really bad things that were quite illegal and hurting people every day. Didn't care. I would go into biker bars and talk shit about them and completely mess all of them up. If it was a dangerous situation that I could put myself in, I was there. I had no compunctions. I made it my purpose to do that kind of stuff because I was angry. I was hurt. I was everything. So that's what I did. That's how I lived. And finally, I overdosed on drugs 3 times in 1 month, and it almost killed me. I ended up in the hospital, and the 3rd time I ended up in the hospital from an overdose, my doctor was the first person that actually told me, you know, this is this. He told me flat out, you've had a lot of situations, you've lived through them, you think you're bulletproof, you think you're life proof, but if you do this again, we're going to just pretend like we're trying to save you and just let you go, because obviously you don't want to be here. Your heart can't take this, your system can't take this, you're going to die anyway, so we might as well just let you. So you have a choice. You can either continue or you can stop. And then I had a conversation with a nun that wasn't there. And I'm not a real religious person, but, or a real spiritual person or anything like that. But after that conversation with the nun, and after the conversation with him and some of the other nurses and stuff, I decided to stop. And my only requirement was, or request was, that the doctor keep me in the hospital while I was detoxing, which he did. I was amazed because he didn't need to. So I detoxed, and it was terrible. It was pain, discomfort, all kinds of stuff, because I was coming off of heroin, meth, alcohol, everything. And I finally got clean. As soon as I got done detoxing and stuff, he was like, okay, you're done. And I never went back to drugs or anything. I stopped completely. That was May 14th or May 16th of 1992. 1994. I haven't done a drug since. So that's what I did. I was still into the garbage that I was into. And a guy that I was semi-friends with got in trouble, brought the trouble to me, ended up getting busted, then turned me in and said that I did everything. And I got put in jail again. And then the feds found out where I was, because I had been off the radar. And I ended up getting time for the state of Colorado. My first experience was in a holding. They have a transition prison, I guess, where you stay there for 3 or 4 days while they designate you to another prison. And it's all open bars, so you can see everybody else's cells across the way. And I was laying there, and this is how terrible I'd gotten. I was laying there in my bunk and reading and stuff, and there was a guy across the way from me, and he was making a noose. And he got done making the noose, and he proceeded to hang himself. And my thought at the time was, this dude is weak. You know, he gets put in here and he can't handle it, so this is his way out. That's weak. I didn't think, oh, this is another human being. I should say something. Didn't even occur to me. I thought he was weak. And to me, weakness was not an option. So I just let him do it. I was like, yeah, stupid ass, you know. So he ended up killing himself. And I sat there and watched. And then I got designated to a high security prison called Centennial. And I thrived. I mean, I could be violent and get away with it. I could just do what I wanted. And so I did 4.5 years in the state and didn't learn anything except, well, nothing actually. I learned some educational type stuff, but I didn't learn about myself. I didn't put any time and energy into that. Who does that? And I mean, what the hell? I was fine with how I was. I wasn't drinking or doing drugs anymore. So I was cool. So I got out, and then I got indicted by the feds again. I won 2 indictments, and finally they got me for a gun. I got put in jail again, but this time federal. And I pled guilty for 6 years, ended up getting a lot more. Altogether, I ended up doing 17.5 years for the feds. And again, I got designated to, actually at that time it was the worst prison in the United States. It's Marion, Illinois. It was 23-hour lockdown. It was considered a what they call an ADX, which is like a super max. And it's usually for people that are high profile or can't be anywhere else in the system. So here I am. I've got no real violence on my record because I got away with everything. And I'm in this prison that I shouldn't be in. And I didn't care. I was around other killers. I mean, plain and simple, it was my kind of people. I understood them. I knew that, you know, if anything happened, they were going to try to kill me and I was going to do the same. Well, it was a perfect system for it because the guards didn't care at all. I mean, my second day there, I got stabbed from behind. The guy reached over, stabbed me in the chest with a knife. And there was a guard 4 feet away behind a gate. He turned around, ran into his office, and came back 2 hours later to find out, you know, the repercussions for all of it. It didn't go good for the guy that stabbed me, but that was just how things were. And that's just, I mean, for 5 years that I was there, that's just everyday occurrence. Somebody was dying, and sometimes more than a few someones. But nobody ever hears about this kind of stuff because it's all hidden. And you can't find out about it because they have everything blocked out so nobody can see shit. Welcome to the system as it is. So for 5 years, that's what I lived. And I ran independent. I didn't click up with anybody. I got a reputation for being somebody you didn't want to mess with, which was pretty cool considering that there's a lot of people there that were dangerous. I was considered, you know, one of those kinds of people that you did not want to go with. So people left me alone more often than not. Finally, I got sent to a different prison that was it's considered a medium high. And again, I got onto the compound and everybody, well, a lot of people had already heard of me which is the case in a lot of the different system, even though there's not supposed to be any interaction between prisons. So I got there, I already had a reputation, and I used it. Somebody stepped up to me in the wrong way, I'd smash them. I didn't even care. And I did that because I was angry. I was completely irate, rage, hate for the system, life in general, probably myself. And I used all that rage and hate to hurt people. And some of it wasn't even necessary. I could have just said whatever and walk away, but I chose not to. So I do what I did, and I'd even make money doing it. And at the same time that I was doing all this kind of stuff, I would also help people get their GEDs and get better jobs within the prison and all this kind of stuff. So it was kind of, I was known for being one way, and then I was known for being another way too. So it was an equal balance in my mind. Well, 8 years into my sentence, I got put in the segregation again, and this time they put me in to an area that they don't put anybody into. It was completely separated from everybody. They decided that they were completely done with dealing with me, so that's where I was going to stay. Well, one of the guards there was a lifer. He'd been there for 25 years or something like that, or been in the system for 25 years. And he knew me pretty well from being in and out of the segregation. And he came to me one night, and he told me, plain and simple, and I laugh at it now, but at the time I didn't. He stood in my bars bright and happy. He's like, "Why are you being such a bitch?" And I went from 0 to hate instantly. And I like this guy. And I smashed into the bars trying to grab him. And he did the last thing I expected him to do. He walked up to the bars, stuck his hands through, bent his hands like this so he could relax on them. And he's like, "Come on. This is what you do. You react. You don't think, you react. So why are you being such a bitch? You want to kill me? Go ahead." And it stopped me. And I just looked at him. I'm like, "What? Are you insane? I'll smash your head against those bars until you're done." And he's like, "I know. You can. Come on." And I sat on my bunk. And I was completely bewildered. I didn't know how to deal with it. Nobody had ever done that to me before. I had done that to other people, but I'd never had anybody do it to me. And I was sitting there and I'm like, what the heck? What's this guy doing? Does he want something to happen? And then his family gets paid good? Or, all these scenarios were going through my head. And as I was sitting there, he's like, "Okay, now you're thinking." He's like, "Now you're off kilter. Now you don't know what to do." It's like, "So now you're able to be talked to." He's like, "You have a choice. I can get you out of here tonight, back on the compound. Everything goes away. Or you're going to just be buried. But you need to change." He's like, "You go around here You help everybody that needs help. You don't care race, creed, color, sentence. You protect people that can't protect themselves. You have really good tendencies, but then the other side of you, you're just so hateful that somebody like me, I just asked you why you're being such a bitch and you were going to kill me. And you didn't even think about it. That was your first reaction, was I'm going to smash this person that said something to me. And for what? Words? He's like, you're better than that. And I hadn't heard that from anybody but my mom. But she didn't know me all that well. My mom used to always tell me, you're better than this. You're better than this. And I didn't think I was. But he told me this, and I'm like, wait a minute. And then he broke everything down to me again and stuff, and he got me really thinking. And he's like, all you need to do, because I know you don't ever break your word, promise me you'll change, and I'll get you out of here tonight. And I was like, I can't promise that. I just can't. He's like, what, you can't change? He's like, you have all of the tools. You help people constantly change shit about themselves. And you can't change yourself. So you expect them to take all this advice and all this, help and do it, and you can't do it yourself? That's crazy. Because if you were trying to help me, I wouldn't listen. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. You're telling me all these good things and stuff, and look at you. You can't even keep from doing what you do. Well, it made sense. And it took me a couple hours. But I was like, you know what? He's right. The system's winning. I'm losing. They're winning. They laugh about it because I'm still losing. And this is what they want. This is what they wanted all along. And he came back in. And I was like, okay, you win. You got to me. I give you my word, I'll change. And he was true to his word. He got the warden down there who knew me. He got the captain who knew me. The Special Investigation Service, we call it SIS, who knew me very well. They all came down there and they were like, okay, you gave Flint, that was the guard's name, your word, you'll change. We don't have to worry about you anymore unless, something actually happens. They're like, if you are protecting yourself or somebody else, we can overlook that. But if you're just hurting people randomly, yeah, we can't do that anymore. If you're snapping one of our guards up, we can't do that anymore. But you gave him your word, you're going to change. That's enough for us. And like I said, everybody knew. From the top of the prison all the way down, if I gave you my word, I'd do everything and then some to keep it. If I told you I was going to smash you, you could believe I was going to smash you. If I told you you were going to be all right, you didn't have to worry about somebody, you didn't have to worry about them anymore. If I told you I was going to get you your GED, you got your GED. If I told you that, you were going to get a job that was better than what you had, then that's how it was. If you wanted to get out of a gang and I told you I was going to do it or help you do it, I did it. And I've always been like that. And I still am. So I did. I got out that night, got put back in my unit, and that's where I'm going to end this. You get to hear about the rest of it in my next video. But for now, that's all I got. This is long enough. So like I said, this is the only disclaimer is I'm not saying these things to act cool or be cool. So if you're younger and you're looking at this and you're like, oh my man, he was a beast and all this kind of stuff. No, no. I was stupid. I used what I knew for bad reasons. I used my intelligence for bad reasons. I didn't do it the right way. So if that's your thought, hopefully it's not, but if it is, no, you're delusional. If you think that you're a badass and you can just go beat people up and do things, no, someone will crush you. I happen to be one of those weird people that was very, very, very good at being physical. I was extremely strong, spent a lot of time in the gym, all that kind of stuff. I had a lot of ability, and I could hurt somebody without caring. So don't try to do that. Don't think you're, like that, because you're not. And if you think you are, and you might be, then you need help, because you're going to end up killing somebody and going to prison. And that's just how it is. If you're doing drugs and being crazy, you need to reevaluate, because same thing with drinking. You need to reevaluate. That's not the kind of life you want, and sooner or later you could lose everything. Family members, your time, your life in prison, whatever the case. It's just not worth it. Find a different route. Hopefully in my next videos and stuff, you'll see that there is a different route and how I did it, and how I am going to continue trying to help people do it. But for now, peace out. That's all you get. Later.